In a world where everyone is competing to be heard, true influence belongs to those who understand the value of speaking with purpose rather than speaking often. Think about the people who have had the greatest impact on your life. Chances are they weren't the loudest voices in the room or the ones who constantly demanded attention. Instead, they spoke with intention. Their words carried weight because they weren't wasted. Every sentence they shared had meaning, and even their silence communicated confidence. In today's fast-paced world, we often believe that influence comes from talking more, explaining more, or proving ourselves at every opportunity. But the reality is quite different. The people who leave the strongest impression are usually those who know when to remain silent, when to listen, and when to speak. Influence is not built by filling every moment with conversation. It is built by making every word count. The journey toward becoming a more influential communicator begins with a simple but often overlooked skill: observation. Most people walk into a conversation already thinking about what they want to say. They're busy preparing their opinions, planning their responses, or searching for the perfect words before the other person has even finished speaking. In doing so, they miss valuable information that is unfolding right in front of them. Every conversation tells a story before a single word is spoken. People's facial expressions, posture, tone of voice, and energy reveal emotions that words often hide. The most influential people understand this. Rather than rushing to speak, they slow down and pay attention. They notice who is confident, who is uncomfortable, who is genuinely interested, and who is simply trying to impress others. These observations allow them to understand people on a much deeper level, and that understanding gives their words far greater impact. When people feel understood, they naturally begin to trust you. Trust is not earned by speaking the most. It is earned by making others feel seen and heard. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, challenge yourself to become more curious than talkative. Listen carefully to the words being spoken, but also pay attention to the pauses, the emotions behind the sentences, and the body language that often reveals what people truly feel. Sometimes the most important part of a conversation isn't what someone says, but what they struggle to say. By becoming a careful observer, you stop reacting based on assumptions and start responding based on genuine understanding. That is where real influence begins. Another habit shared by highly influential people is their ability to pause before responding. In today's world, speed is often mistaken for intelligence. People feel pressure to answer immediately, defend themselves instantly, or react without thinking. But the strongest communicators understand that there is incredible power in a brief moment of silence. A pause of just 2 or 3 seconds creates space between emotion and action. It allows you to organize your thoughts, calm your emotions, and choose words that solve problems instead of creating new ones. Rather than reacting impulsively, you respond with purpose. This simple habit communicates confidence, emotional control, and maturity. People naturally trust individuals who remain calm under pressure because calmness signals strength. Think about the leaders, mentors, or speakers you admire most. They rarely rush through their words. They speak slowly and deliberately because they understand that silence is not a weakness. Instead, silence creates anticipation. It gives their audience time to absorb each idea while making every sentence feel more important. The next time someone asks you a difficult question or challenges your opinion, resist the urge to answer immediately. Take a slow breath, gather your thoughts, and then respond with intention. Those few seconds may completely change the direction of the conversation and allow your message to be received with far greater respect. Listening is another powerful skill that separates ordinary communicators from truly influential ones. Many people believe leadership comes from having all the answers, but genuine leadership begins with making others feel heard. Think about the last conversation where someone gave you their complete attention. They weren't looking at their phone, interrupting your thoughts, or waiting for their turn to speak. They simply listened. Chances are that conversation made you feel respected, valued, and understood. This is exactly how influential people build trust. They understand that listening is not a passive activity, but an active demonstration of respect. They don't simply hear words. They listen for emotions, motivations, and concerns. As a result, their responses feel thoughtful because they are rooted in understanding rather than assumption. Once you have observed carefully, paused thoughtfully, and listened deeply, only then should you speak. At that point, your words are supported by understanding rather than impulse. Every sentence you speak should have a clear purpose. Instead of asking yourself, "What should I say next?" ask a better question. What is the one thing I want this person to remember? People rarely remember long explanations. They remember one powerful idea, one meaningful sentence, or one conversation that changed the way they think. That is why simplicity is one of the greatest communication skills you can develop. Complicated language may sound impressive, but clear and simple language creates lasting impact. When you speak with clarity, people remember your message instead of struggling to understand it. As you begin applying these principles, you will notice something remarkable. You will feel less pressure to constantly prove yourself. Conversations will become more meaningful. People will begin seeking your advice because they trust your judgment rather than the volume of your voice. Over time, your influence will no longer come from speaking often. It will come from speaking wisely. The strongest communicators are not those who fill every silence with words. They are the ones who understand that sometimes silence itself is the most powerful message they can deliver. And this is where the journey toward lasting influence truly begins. As your ability to observe, listen, and speak with intention grows, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Your influence is shaped just as much by your emotions as it is by your words. Every time you enter a room, people notice more than what you say. They notice your energy, your confidence, and the way you respond under pressure. Whether you realize it or not, your emotional state silently communicates with everyone around you. A person who remains calm during moments of tension naturally earns respect, while someone who reacts impulsively often loses credibility, no matter how intelligent or persuasive they may be. This is why emotional control is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. It doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending they don't exist. Instead, it means recognizing your emotions without allowing them to control your actions. Real strength is measured not by how loudly you react, but by how calmly you respond. Think about the most respected leaders you've encountered. They are rarely the ones who panic when problems arise. Instead, they become a source of stability for everyone around them. Their calmness creates confidence because people naturally look for someone who appears steady when circumstances become uncertain. Every difficult conversation, every disagreement, and every unexpected challenge presents an opportunity to practice this skill. Before responding emotionally, take a slow breath and allow yourself a brief moment to think. That simple pause creates enough distance between emotion and action for wisdom to take over. Rather than becoming a prisoner of the moment, you become the person who guides the conversation with confidence and composure. Over time, this habit transforms only your communication, but also the way others perceive your leadership. This becomes especially important during conflict. Disagreements are unavoidable in every relationship, whether at work, at home, or among friends. Most people believe the way to win an argument is to explain more, defend themselves more forcefully, or speak louder than the other person. Yet conflict rarely ends because someone talked longer. In fact, the opposite is often true. The more emotional a conversation becomes, the less people actually hear one another. When tempers rise, words lose their effectiveness. The person who remains calm immediately gains an advantage, not because they are dominating the conversation, but because they are refusing to be controlled by it. Silence, when used intentionally, often carries more authority than endless explanations. Remaining composed allows emotions to settle, giving everyone involved the opportunity to think more clearly, rather than simply react. One of the most effective ways to reduce tension during conflict is to replace statements with thoughtful questions. Instead of insisting that someone is wrong, become genuinely curious about their perspective. Ask questions that encourage reflection rather than resistance. Questions such as, "What led you to that conclusion?" Or, "Can you help me understand how you see this situation?" Invite conversation instead of confrontation. When people feel respected, they naturally lower their defenses. They become more willing to examine their own thinking because they no longer feel attacked. This approach does more than resolve disagreements. It builds trust. The goal of influence has never been to force someone to accept your opinion. The goal is to create an environment where understanding becomes possible. Questions have another remarkable advantage. They encourage people to discover answers for themselves. Human beings naturally value conclusions they arrive at on their own more than advice handed to them by someone else. Rather than telling others what they should believe or what decision they should make, guide their thinking with meaningful questions. A thoughtful question can spark self-reflection in ways that a long speech never could. Great teachers, mentors, coaches, and leaders understand this principle well. They don't simply provide solutions, they help others uncover those solutions through careful conversation. When someone feels ownership over an idea, they become far more committed to acting on it. As you become more intentional with your words, you'll also begin to appreciate the power of communication without speaking at all. Long before people hear your voice, they begin forming impressions based on your body language. The way you walk into a room, your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact, and even the pace of your movements all communicate confidence or uncertainty. Quiet confidence is rarely announced through words. Instead, it is reflected through calm, deliberate actions. Standing with good posture, maintaining relaxed eye contact, and moving with purpose send a message of self-assurance without the need for explanation. These subtle signals often influence people far more than carefully chosen sentences. Your facial expressions also shape every interaction. A genuine smile creates warmth and trust, while a calm and attentive expression communicates presence and confidence. Even moments of silence become meaningful when they are accompanied by focused attention. Instead of rushing to fill every pause, allow silence to exist naturally within conversations. Those brief moments give others space to think, encourage them to continue speaking, and demonstrate that you are comfortable without constantly proving yourself. In a world filled with noise, the person who is comfortable with silence often appears the most confident. Another overlooked aspect of nonverbal influence is consistency. Your words and your actions must support one another. If you speak confidently but appear nervous, people will believe what they see rather than what they hear. On the other hand, when your body language aligns with your message, your credibility grows naturally. Influence is never built on words alone. It is built on trust, authenticity, and the confidence people feel when your presence matches your message. As you continue developing these habits, you'll notice a profound shift in your relationships. You will no longer feel the need to win every argument, defend every opinion, or prove your value through constant conversation. Instead, your calmness, thoughtful questions, emotional discipline, and quiet presence will begin doing much of the work for you. Others will feel more comfortable opening up, more willing to listen, and more inclined to seek your guidance. That is the hidden power of silent influence. It doesn't demand attention. It earns respect naturally through patience, understanding, and self-control. The quieter your confidence becomes, the louder your influence will grow. As you continue applying these principles, you'll discover that true influence is not built through louder voices or longer conversations. It is built through consistency, character, and the quiet confidence that comes from living with purpose. Over time, your reputation begins to speak before you do. People remember how you treated them, whether you kept your promises, and how you responded during difficult moments. Trust isn't earned through impressive speeches, but through small, consistent actions repeated day after day. Every honest decision, every promise you keep, and every act of integrity strengthens your character until your actions become your greatest introduction. Eventually, people no longer believe in you because of what you say. They believe in you because of who you have consistently proven yourself to be. One of the greatest lessons in influence is learning that not every battle deserves your attention. Many people waste their energy defending themselves, arguing over opinions, or trying to convince those who have already chosen not to listen. But real strength lies in knowing when to remain silent and walk away. Choosing peace over pointless conflict is not weakness. It is wisdom. It allows you to protect your energy, maintain emotional control, and focus on what truly matters. The same wisdom applies to communication itself. Rather than speaking to impress others, speak to inspire them. People rarely remember someone who sounded intelligent, but they never forget someone who made them feel understood, encouraged, or capable of becoming better. Simple, honest stories and sincere words often leave a far greater impact than the most carefully crafted speech. As your confidence grows, you also begin to understand the importance of timing. The right words spoken at the wrong moment often lose their power, while a patient pause can completely transform a conversation. Quiet confidence doesn't rush to be heard because it doesn't need constant validation. It comes from preparation, self-awareness, and the discipline to stay true to your values regardless of what others think. This kind of confidence naturally develops into leadership. The most respected leaders are not those who demand attention, but those who lead by example. They listen before they speak, remain calm under pressure, encourage others to grow, and build trust through fairness, humility, and consistency. Their influence comes not from authority, but from the respect they earn through their actions. Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is the power of silence. In a world filled with endless noise, silence has become one of the rarest and most valuable forms of communication. It gives you the opportunity to observe before reacting, to think before speaking, and to understand before judging. Silence allows your words to carry greater meaning because people know you speak with purpose rather than impulse. As you leave this audiobook, remember that influence is never about saying more. It is about saying what matters, acting with integrity, and living in a way that inspires others without seeking attention. Speak with purpose, listen with empathy, lead through your example. Let your character become your strongest message, because in the end, people may forget many of your words, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And that is the quiet power of lasting influence.